What's going on, Wolfpack? Welcome back to another episode of Market Watch Mondays. Hopefully, one of your favorite weekly tune-ins, and it's definitely one of my favorite ones to record. I'm glad to be back in the studio again, recording for this week. Have yet to miss an episode and don't plan on doing it. As always, I'm your host at Mike Me Up with 2 P's, aka Mike, aka Pro Scout Dude on Twitter. At least want to be Pro Scout. And you can find me on Twitter at Mike Me Up with 2 P's. Like I said, hop on there, reply to my comments, jump in my threads, hop in my DMs, ask some questions. I usually try and respond to whoever I can. But when I'm not responding on there, it's usually because I'm focused on responding to the Patreon members of the Wolfpack Nation. So if you're willing to support me and want to jump in there, it's patreon.com/ourpack. There will be a new set of rankings dropped monthly. In fact, the next set of rankings for August will be coming out tomorrow for those of you in there. So make sure you hop on over there and support me if you can. Support the BDG brand. Again, it's all under the same type of umbrella. So support me, support us. We're out here grinding for y'all, and just trying to make a business out of things. Do things the right way. So that's where we're at right now. I got a couple of things I wanted to cover today. I want to do a little bit of something that's a little bit different today. I want to talk about some players, but not players in this class or in the NFL. I want to look forward to a couple of classes down the road. One of the most exciting classes that we've seen come out, or that will be coming out, I guess, in the next couple of years. But before we get on to that, y'all know what time it is, man. Hit that intro. All right. So big weekend this week. It's anniversary weekend, so I'm gonna be busy doing that, but could not miss the episodes. Taking away a little bit of time from there to kind of spend with you guys and record this session so they can be dropped on time every week, just like it has always been. So that's what I'm out here doing, grinding for y'all. But training camp is here, and with training camp, what does that mean? That means training camp hype season is here. If you go on Twitter right now, you will not find a shortage of every single analyst retweeting, quote tweeting, doing whatever, showing a blurb from training camp, a blurb from the coach, a blurb from a video from in shorts or whatever, what have you. Everyone is out here confirming their priors, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. I love training camp hype season. It's one of the fun times of the year. It's the first little taste of real life football that we're getting. So I don't blame anyone for being excited, right? And that's all fine and dandy. So, but I think you just got to be careful. Be careful treading those waters, because you don't want to fall victim to training camp hype season. Because look, this is how I usually deal with training camp, right? Most of the positive news, I just 100% do not account for it at all. Because, everyone wants to hype up their players, right? It's like post-draft. Of course, every team, every coach wants to come out and say their players are the best. They had the best draft. They got a first-round talent in the third round. They got a second-round talent in the fourth round, what have you, right? Everyone wants to think that way. So that's going to be 99% of stuff. And then the beat reporters are very similar, right? They are very incentivized to pump up their own teams because, one, nobody's going to want to fucking talk to you if all you do is shit on the team, right? If you shit on the players. No player's ever going to give you an interview. No player's ever going to want to talk to you. No coach will want to talk to you if all you do is go out there and talk shit about the team. So they're naturally incentivized to give out positive stuff and have fluff pieces. And again, nothing wrong with that, right? That's part of their job. That's part of the hype season. It builds hype for the NFL. It builds hype for the team. It builds hype for the fans. All positive stuff. When it comes to fantasy, we got to peel that shit back, right? You got to take all that positive news, put it in the back burner. The only time I really, really start paying attention to positive news is when I find multiple pieces that kind of align to the same things. What I would like to call like a mosaic approach, right? To evidence is if a coach is beating the drum, players are beating the drum, then the beat writers are also beating the drum by talking about them playing with the first team, getting first team reps and all that stuff. And that happens consistently week after week after week in the offseason, then I'm going to start giving it some credence, right? Kind of like Philip Lindsay. If you think back to training camp, nobody knew who Philip Lindsay was, right? I certainly didn't know who Philip Lindsay was, but we kept hearing his name pop up every single week in the offseason. So I went out and grabbed a bunch of Philip Lindsay. And then same thing with James Robinson. We kind of heard his beat drum really, really loudly throughout the offseason, but it wasn't like I heard one positive piece of news. I'm like, all right, well, this guy's definitely going to be on the team. It's more trying to follow that steady stream of positive information, right? But the majority of what I use this time for is I like to focus on the negative stuff, not so positive stuff, because given everyone is so incentivized to be positive and be pumped up and be all ooh-rah, the negative news holds 10 times more weight than the positive news, right? If a prospect is not getting reps with the first team, the coach is not talking positive about him, saying they need to train up or do better or whatever. Those are the types of pieces of news that really catch my eye, because there's enough analysts out there that are pumping up future practice squad players, right? Who's gonna be the Darwin Thompson of this year? Who's gonna be the Steven Sims of this year, right? Like, there's a lot of people that are on that stuff, right? And I don't really focus on sleepers much at all. Like, I spend almost no time on sleepers. Like last year, I had one sleeper pick. It was Darnell Mooney. That was it. I didn't go out anywhere else. I was like, hey, this guy's a pretty damn good profile. Chicago seems like a place with ample opportunity. The numbers seem to line up. When I watched him play, he's quick. He's like a poor man's Deontay Johnson. And he's free. So I was like, okay, this is a guy that I'm going to pick. And he was my highest exposure player throughout all of last year because he was free. I got him off the waiver, right? So I don't really spend too much time on sleepers. There's too much hype of all of these guys. Like, a practice squad player gets one piece of positive news, and next thing you know, like, everyone's rushing the waiver wire to grab him. And then once they grab him, like, all the analysts are pumping up. Like, hey, is this the QB2? Is this the RB2? Is this the wide receiver 3? Who the fuck knows? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. I don't really focus on that stuff. But I like to focus on negative, especially for the ones that have draft capital, which we care about. If those players are not really getting positive news, that's not good, right? So, for example, one example of this year, I think, is like Javonte Williams, right? I love Javonte Williams. I think he's a great prospect. We had Graham Barfield on the show. I love Graham's work, and his work suggests that Javonte Williams is going to be nothing short of a stud, right? But we need to temper expectations of what he will be this year, because the people that are close to Denver, Benjamin Albright, for example, one of the Denver beat reporters over there. Is he a beat reporter? I don't know. Is he a beat reporter or just a Twitter troll or like a Twitter personality? Whatever. Either way, he has some pulse on what's going on in Denver, and others that have a pulse on Denver saying Melvin Gordon is the guy. And that was my main concern with him landing in Denver is, look, I'm not concerned long-term. Like, long-term, I'm sure he'll take over the job, but in this year, you cannot expect steady production from Javonte Williams. He's going to be like a fringe RB2 probably at best, right? I think Melvin Gordon, because Melvin Gordon is not a two-down grinder jag. Like, Melvin Gordon isn't elite anymore, but he's not a two-down grinder jag. He's still good enough to break tackles. He's still more than relevant in the receiving game. And, of course, he's great on the goal line. He always has been. He's always been great in the goal line, in the red zone work. So those are very, very high-value touches, right? So, we're not seeing like a crazy amount of hype. It's like, oh yeah, Javonte Williams taking over. Like, if anything, I'm hearing a lot of the opposite, which is Melvin Gordon is kind of going to be here to stay. And if anything, Melvin Gordon is going to lead off the year, or for most of the year, be the running back one of that team, right? Does that mean I disliked Javonte Williams for Dynasty? Absolutely not. I still think you can draft him, but looking at where he's going kind of in redraft leagues is a little bit puzzling to me, because it like assumes that Melvin Gordon's dead. Melvin Gordon's going in the double-digit rounds in best ball drafts right now in underdogs in the 10th, 11th, sometimes 12th rounds. I have a lot of Melvin Gordon in best ball because I think he's a great like running back 3, running back 4 on my best ball teams, because he's that guy that can absolutely put up like a 20 burger in any given week. And if you're getting him in double-digit rounds, and there's also the chance that he just kind of holds that role for the entire year. And then there's also a lesser chance that he's there beyond next year, because we don't know what teams are going to do. Now, I'd say that's unlikely, but those are the types of examples, right? Like, that's a very highly touted prospect that the Dynasty community really loved. Denver traded up to get him, which is very positive. He is a tackle-breaking monster. He's a receiving monster. He absolutely has a 3-down skill set, right? But the training camp, there's a lot of news about Melvin Gordon. So that's where I kind of peel back the tea leaves and like, okay, well, maybe this is not the year for Javonte Williams. And I have Javonte Williams in my teams, and I'm happy to have him. But we just need to temper expectations. And if I think what the expectation now is from most of the Dynasty community, and a lot of the analysts are touting him, is like, this guy's taking over. This guy's taking over. Might not be week 1, might not be week 2, but he's taking over this year. And although that might be in the range of outcomes, I don't think it should be priced like that, right? And it's really, he's being priced right now as if that's going to absolutely happen. Whereas I do think Melvin Gordon is going to be a thorn in his side, a thorn in everyone's sides that did not draft Melvin Gordon, not me, but everyone who did not draft Melvin Gordon. I think it's going to be a little bit of a rocky ride, right? So you're going to have to exercise some patience when it comes to Javonte Williams, right? So that's like the kind of stuff that I pay attention to. So I just wanted to cover that real quick on training camp hype, because you don't want to fall victim to the hype cycle and the echo chamber that is training camp hype, where everyone's just quoting their own favorite videos. I don't even tweet out my own videos anymore, because Rashad Bateman, and trust me, I know it's hard. Rashad Bateman, who I love, everyone's been talking about the video of him burning one of the better corners in the league, and I love Rashad Bateman, right? I've said this entire offseason. I think he is the most undervalued rookie player coming into this season, but like that video changes nothing for me because I already thought that he was very good. So him burning someone in practice, although it's nice, doesn't really change my view of him and doesn't really change my valuation of him as well. I've always thought he was the wide receiver 2 of the class, right? So nothing's really moved for me. So it's just paying attention to, the hype cycle of what people are doing and, try and stay away from that. Enjoy it for sure. Like have the fun aspect of it, but try and dissociate that from fantasy because when it comes to fantasy, you got to be cold fucking blooded, right? You got to be cold blooded in your analysis. You got to try and stay away from the massive hype cycle that's going to happen because everyone is just going to tweet out positive shit about players they already liked and already tweeted about in the offseason. That's all training camp hype season is. So, I'm really paying attention to the negative stuff, especially for players that I like, right? Like if there's players that I really like that are not getting the daylight and that are not really showing up and getting more importantly, getting negative coverage, that's going to help me. That's going to adjust my priors a lot because this is the time of the year where I take in negative information much more heavily than any positive information. Because like I said, I discount most of the positive stuff that's being said by any beat reporter, right? I'm only trying to look at usage stuff. There are certain beat reporters that like look at usage of snaps and like first team reps or second team reps. That's like somewhat useful, but really that's going to come in like, preseason is that's really going to come in like the earlier on the weeks, right? Like the early weeks in the season, you're going to see the usage play out. But so that's kind of my approach to the training camp offseason. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's awesome, right? I love seeing everyone do it. Everyone's susceptible to it, including myself. But we always got to like try and dial it back and remember, like, look, this is hype season, right? Do not fall victim to hype, especially just for the players that you like. You're going to fall in that trap and it's like, oh yeah, let me confirm this prior. And I joke about it all the time. I only go on Twitter to confirm my priors. But like really, like I'm looking for people to challenge me as well because I like thinking through a different lens. Like, for example, Devontae Smith has been showing up pretty heavily at training camp, right? He's been doing the same thing that Rashad Bateman did. He's also burning corners, right? But I'm not really going to change that much because that was one of his skill sets coming in. Everyone told me he was the best route runner. Everyone told me the greatest releases. So now that we've seen that play through, like I already believe them, and that's not why I don't like Devontae Smith. It's not even that I don't like Devontae Smith, but I had him lower than Rashad Bateman for other reasons, right? So the same way that I'm not hyping up Rashad Bateman, I'm also not really going to take in Devontae Smith, right? But you're going to see a lot of people that don't do the opposite. They're going to be like, Devontae Smith, he's still like whatever. And then they see Rashad Bateman highlights, like, oh my God, it's Rashad Bateman season. So don't try and be equal opportunity to players you were hyped about and not hyped about. Don't just go in and just take in the information that you want to see because it's not really going to improve your process at all. It's not going to help you with any decisions you make. It's not really going to make you a better player, right? So those are the really, really important things that I wanted to go over during training camp hype season, all right? But beyond that, today I want to give you a first little preview into what the 2023 wide receiver class is like. Everyone's been talking about the running backs as the best running back class ever. You got Tank Bigsby, you got the GOAT himself, Bijan Robinson, who's Saquon Barkley 2.0, people say. And then you got, Yamir Gibbs, who is, a mix between Alvin Kamara and so on. Anyways, the lofty comps are being thrown out already. And there's a lot of really, really good players in that class, without a doubt. But let's talk about the wide receivers because this is a damn good wide receiver class. And you know me, as a numbers guy, I love talking about wide receivers because there's so many numbers that we can go off of. And one of the strongest indications to me of any wide receiver class is how many true freshman breakouts there are because that's really, really hard to do. We value age-adjusted breakout a lot in Dynasty, and especially when it comes to wide receivers because the earlier you break out, typically the better odds you have of hitting the NFL because it's harder to break out that early. And in 2023 alone, we have a ton of freshman breakouts already. And I'm only looking at the big conferences, so the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, SEC, and Pac-12. Although like Pac-12, ACC are a little bit discounted in the Big 12 compared to like the Big 10 and the SEC. But out of the Power 5 conferences, there are a few names that I want to go over. And number one on that list, one of my favorite prospects in this class is Quentin Johnston, TCU, playing in the Big 12. He is he's about 193rd 203 pounds, 76 inches. You'll have to excuse me. I freaking suck at converting American units of measurement. But he's 6'4". So he's 6'4", a tall, lanky dude. Like, it probably reminds you more of like almost like an AJ Green type of guy in terms of his lankiness. But do not let his weight fool you. He's a little bit lanky, so his BMI 23.5. I'm sure the BMI truthers are going to rag on him and hate on that. Personally, I don't care because his production speaks for itself. So he has 25% of his team's receiving yards market share as a true freshman. So 7%, or almost 8% higher than the team average, and also a 1.79 yards per team pass attempt. And those are the two of the key metrics that I look at is just market share of receiving yards that's adjusted based on age, and also the yards per team pass attempt. The yards per team pass attempt is really good because guys, really smart guys like JJ Zacharyson, he was the first one that I kind of really started following that was using it, and also like Emeka. So they started using it, and what their study showed was that it was a very, very good indicator. And it makes sense because yards per team pass attempt is almost like it's a market share plus an efficiency measurement, right? Because it shows that, one, they're getting a lot of the targets, right? And they're getting a lot of the catches, but also on those targets, how efficient they are. So 1.79 as a true freshman is pretty damn good, all right? If anything over 1.5 is actually pretty damn good for a true freshman. Even if you're a little bit lower, that's still okay because, you know, you're a freshman, you kind of improve year over year. But 1.79 puts him at basically the best in this class, in the 2023 class so far, out of every wide receiver in a Power 5 conference that actually was relevant. So 1.79 yards per pass attempt, 25% market share. So not a 30% breakout, not like a Rondale Moore type breakout, but a very, very solid breakout. And from a film perspective, again, I'm not a film expert, but this guy's a tackle breaking monster. When he has the ball in his hands, he's able to make the moves, which you wouldn't think so. You think that a tall, lanky wide receiver is more of like a catch and fall guy, not really like a yak monster, but that's not at all true. That's just basically what he does. He makes a lot of bread on the ground, just running it with the ball in his hands. So I'm really, really excited to see how he develops over time. And, you know, if he continues to dominate over there, like, you know, I'm sure people will have a bad taste in their mouth because they'll be like, oh, it's Jalen Reagor all over again, and they'll do the helmet scouting. But these are very different styles of wide receivers as well. You know, Jalen Reagor is more of like a tightly compact, tiny dude who's also good with the ball in his hands. But Quentin Johnston is just a tall, lanky guy that can win in all aspects of the field. So I'm very, very excited about Quentin Johnston. He is one of my top wide receivers in that class and someone that I've been targeting and drafting across the board in all of my Devy leagues. I'm just excited to see kind of how he plays out. All right. But the wide receiver one overall for most people, including myself, is Kayshon Boutte or Boutte. Sorry, I don't know how to say his name, but from LSU, playing for the SEC. So again, a big plus up because you're facing the best corners over there. But he broke out this year as well with a 22.46% market share. So again, just a very, very good, solid breakout for a young wide receiver. He was rocking a 1.66 yards per team pass attempt. So again, just above that 1.5 mark that we talked about. But again, you know, he played, and he didn't play with bums either. He played with Terrace Marshall, who obviously won in the second round of the NFL draft. And, you know, as Terrace Marshall kind of got hurt in this year, this is the kind of where like Kayshon Boutte really emerged and took over as the young stud. And he was also a very, very highly touted prospect coming in, right? So those are the things that we like to look at as well. You know, I always talk about serial winners, and those are the guys that I think, you know, they come in highly touted out of high school, and beyond that, they continue to produce in college. Like the T. Higgins type of mold, right? One of the top 4 receivers coming in through high school. Kayshon Boutte was the number 2 ranked wide receiver coming into the class and just, you know, went into LSU, wide receiver U, and freaking dominated in the SEC. And I love to see that type of production very, very early on. So Kayshon Boutte is probably most people's Devy wide receiver one right now. I'm seeing him go mostly in the first round of any Devy draft that I've seen in the top 10 picks, and he's an absolute stud. So that's someone that I hope all you guys are paying attention to. He'll probably be a stud to come for many, many years, and probably take over that crown and be the next guy in the LSU lineage of godly wide receivers, and maybe one day join the ranks of the likes of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Although he's not that level of prospect, just given his size, but he can definitely grow into it. So Kayshon Boutte, another guy that probably isn't a sleeper at all, but just want to put him on your radar for those of you guys that are not kind of paying attention as much to the scene there, right? And then another guy who I want to talk about, who's also in that top bracket of wide receivers, is Rakim Jarrett. So Rakim Jarrett is about 6'4", I believe. Let me just look it up. But anyways, he's playing at Maryland. Again, another very highly touted prospect. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds, 27.1 BMI. So the BMI lovers are going to love Rakim Jarrett. But he's got that prototypical size. He technically didn't cross a 20% threshold mark, but we all know it's kind of more of an arbitrary threshold anyway, so I look at everyone kind of around that range. But he produced at 19% or 19.6% of his team's market share of receiving yards and a 1.61 yards per team pass attempt. So again, showing that blend of market share plus efficiency. But Rakim Jarrett is a monster. So playing for Maryland, I fully expect him to kind of take that leap up this year as well, to kind of break out, maybe have a massive breakout in that 30% range. We'll see what happens. But, showed up as a true freshman as well, was a pretty highly touted prospect coming in, but just another guy based on the numbers that kind of jumps out to me on the page. And even though he technically didn't break out at 20%, it's not like he didn't do anything. He was a bum. He's obviously a pretty damn good player to be able to put up the numbers that he did as a true freshman. So now we're just kind of looking forward to making that next leap. But the BMI, for all you BMI truthers, interesting. From an alpha perspective, he's definitely got the size and the build to kind of take that to the next level in the NFL. So those are three guys that are super interesting to me. And I want to walk through a couple of others as well. Jermaine Burton plays for Georgia. He's 6 foot, 195, so 26.4 BMI. Again, probably crosses the box for a lot of the BMI truthers out there. He wasn't as efficient as the other counterparts. He's about 1.32 yards per team pass attempt, which isn't awful, just isn't top end. But he played for Georgia, and again, he's impressive because he was pushing, George Pickens, who most people have at least had as, the top 3 wide receiver in the 2022 class. A lot of people had him as the wide receiver 1 overall, just given what he did as a true freshman. But Jermaine Burton was out there competing with him on the field and kind of also producing at a very high level. So just another guy to look out for. And then a couple other guys that did also have true freshman breakouts, a little bit on the smaller end. Jordan Addison plays for Pittsburgh in the ACC, so not as impressive from a conference perspective, but definitely impressive from a production perspective, rocking a 23% market share with 1.56 yards per team pass attempt. But he's a lot smaller, so this is more like a typecast role where he's probably going to be a slot receiver if he does get drafted. I don't really want to. I'm not like a BMI truther by any means, but I'm also not really going to chase the really tiny guys all that often, just because odds are not in their favor. Granted, it definitely, the game is changing a bit and they're definitely getting a little bit more involved, but it's still something to kind of pay attention to. So that's the reason why he's not really my top 5, but definitely on the radar, just given the amount of production that he's had. All right. So that's someone else to pay attention to. And then another guy. So Parker Washington. All right. Parker Washington. This guy is thick. All right. Parker Washington plays for PSU. And he's someone that I haven't really heard too many people talk about. He's about 5'10", 205. So 29.4 BMI. Kind of like in that Golden Tate type of mold where he's like a running back with the ball in his hands playing wide receiver. But, everyone for the most part at Penn State are going to be tracking, Jahan Dotson, who was the leading receiver last year. But I'm much, much more interested in Parker Washington. First of all, Jahan Dotson is going to be a senior, so he was a junior last year before he actually truly broke out. But Parker Washington, as a true freshman, was kind of already second on the team for receiving yards. So that's kind of a lot more impressive to me. But also, if you look at Parker Washington, he had a 1.6 yards per team pass attempt, which ranked fifth best in that class. So he's top 5 as a breakout in terms of market share of receiving yards, but also top 5 from an efficiency perspective. So those are 2 boxes that check. And then also the BMI box, for those of you BMI lovers out there, also check that box. So he's just someone else that I feel like is a great value to have right now. I like to bet on these true freshman breakouts, like I said, for the reasons before. But if you just look at this class alone, there's 1, 2, 3, or one more guy that I did not talk about yet, but it's Jaden Wally from Mississippi. Hopefully I said his name right. If I didn't, again, I apologize. I always butcher names. That's just part of the game for me. But true freshman playing the SEC, put about 52 receptions for 718 yards last year as a freshman playing in the SEC. So again, another very, very interesting name, a little bit lighter on the BMI side, but again, these are freshmen, right? So judging by their freshman weight and stuff is not necessarily going to be the way to go, because a lot of them do tend to put on mass throughout college, or at least, we've seen that as a possibility. But 22% market share, a lot less efficient on the yards per team pass attempt, so 1.29 yards per team pass attempt. So that's a little bit of a red flag. Again, not horrible, but not horrible enough to be like, let's ignore him, but just something that kind of like separates him and some of the other guys. But him playing the SEC is obviously more impressive, just because SEC has actually plays a lot more defense, and some of the corners actually do play press, whereas a lot of these other, other leagues like ACC and Big 12 and all that stuff, like they don't really play press coverage that much. So just another guy, but including him, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 true freshman breakouts that exceeded 20% of their team's receiving yard market share. And then if you include guys like Rakim Jarrett and Jermaine Burton, who I think both are very, very interesting. Burton had a little bit of injury in the offseason, though, so that's something to monitor. But, if you include those guys, it's about 7 guys already that are really kind of piquing my interest just based on their freshman years alone. Now, some of them maybe fall off. Some of them, get hurt. Some of them just don't live up to the hype or whatever. But that's a really, really good starting point. That's a really strong starting point. And if you look at the 2020 class and 2021 class, like they didn't have that many Power 5 freshman breakouts. So I'm very excited. As much as I'm excited about the 2023 class as a whole, I'm also very, very excited about the 2023 class from a wide receiver perspective, because there are these guys that, are naturally going to fall into the second round of your rookie drafts, and you're going to be able to secure more value. I think Quentin Johnston might be one of those guys who kind of gets overlooked because of TCU. And then I also think Parker Washington is another one that's going to go a little bit overlooked, just those 2 guys. So I think those are 2 guys that I'm going to be keeping my eye on really, really closely, and those are guys that I have already drafted on my Devy leagues as early as this year. So be on the lookout for them. Again, just want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek. I'm not going to give you the exact rankings of how I have them. If you want to see my ranks, go on over to the Patreon and the Wolfpack Discord. You'll be able to see them over there. But those are the guys that really kind of pique my interest and guys that I've been tracking. So just bring them to your attention so that everyone's on the same page, right? Hopefully, y'all found that helpful. If you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and get the notifications so you know when these videos are popping up for you. And again, if you are trying to become a hardcore Dynasty gamer, trying to up your Dynasty strategy, which is the most important part and the most overlooked part in my opinion, hop on over and support us at patreon.com/ourpack. That's patreon.com/ourpack. Join the Wolfpack today. Discord community of 300 plus strong, talking Dynasty, football, strategy, and player analysis 24/7, 365. I'm in there. Other smart people are in there. People smarter than me are in there. And we're all just trying to get better as players. So it's a beautiful community. It's a beautiful thing. Hopefully you guys will join us. And if you do join us, if you're already in there, I thank you for your support. If you're planning on joining, we're looking forward to welcoming you. And if you can't join, that's okay too. I appreciate your support for, watching my videos and, supporting me through that way. I appreciate y'all always. And for now, I'm out for this weekend. Got some other personal stuff to tend to, so I'll catch you guys later and next week of Bunker Watch Mondays. That's all. Peace.